Hello, welcome back to What Now on the Threshold of Life, Death, and Grief. And I'm here in our Thin Spaces studio with
Red Keating
and David Kennedy.
And I'm Julie Brown, and we're joined for this episode with a very special guest, Bob Campbell. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
So honored and delighted to welcome you into this conversation and this space with us. We're here to talk about a subject we have been wanting to talk about for a very long time on this podcast, accidental death by overdose. And so tonight we have Bob joining us as a parent, going to share your story with us. Yeah, so welcome.
And it's a delight to welcome you, Bob, not just as a guest, but as a wonderful friend. And we've journeyed along this journey of grief since this happened, and it's almost 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
December 14th,
Yep.
2019,
Yep.
I believe.
Yep.
And thank you so much for taking this opportunity to share with us and to talk about, as Julie mentioned, such an important topic that doesn't get talked about enough. We live it, we see it in the papers, we know people, but to actually have a conversation around the grief and how this affects us is so helpful. So thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
So maybe we could begin by having you just kind of introduce us to Kathleen and talk a little bit about who she was, what she was like, and get us started in helping us to know her.
Happy to do that. Kath was our middle child, 3 girls, and Kath was also an adopted child. So we had our first daughter for a number of years, and the story goes that you try, and then all of a sudden you have 2 more because you adopt one, and then our third daughter came along. So Kath was a very bubbly, enthusiastic, very energetic child, lovely, smart, blonde curly hair, drove her sisters crazy. And, through the first period of time, you sort of try very hard to integrate. And I think that through a period of time, she distanced herself a little bit, even as a young child. Obviously, we continued to to support her and that kind of thing. Early in her teenage years, she, as she had said a number of times during her addiction, that it was the first time that she had a little weed when she was a teenager. But from mid-teens on, it became a challenge for her, for sure, and obviously for the rest of us. But she had a great sense of humor, very bright, and she has 2 wonderful children, our grandchildren, and they're 22 now and 18. So in some ways, that's part of the pleasure that we have, going forward and remembering her through the kids now. Very difficult journey, as people might know, when you have a child that seems to be going different paths than your other kids. As you know, Susan and I brought 2 families together too, so that I think compounded certain things. And she had 5 loving siblings.
It really does. There's a lot in the dynamics there with kids growing up. And it's hard to say, isn't it? I'm sure you've thought about it. But, that initial movement in your early teens is what you said, into that struggle for. Do you feel it's an identity issue that kind of was a struggle for her?
I think it was where she belonged. I think she struggled with where she belonged, and maybe from a research point of view that can be normal, or certainly for just regular parents. but I feel looking back on it, and even during her journey through, she died when she was 43, so she had some life, doing very well, and then fall back, and then, I mean, I know that routine, but I think it was like, where do I belong here? And I had offered a number of times to have her track down her biological parents, but she didn't want to, and so we didn't press it necessarily. But I remember one time we were going up Lansdowne Street, and she was looking at the cemetery and would make comments like, "I wonder if my mom is there," kind of thing. So it was always an indication that she felt that she didn't know where she belonged. She was very, very good at connecting with people and making friends, but she didn't keep friends. As I remember, I'm trying to reminisce a little bit in terms of the early days. And so she had this ability to alienate people somehow or other. And then enter adulthood, it seemed like a bit of a roller coaster.
That's a long period of 20 years, pretty well, 20, 25 years of that struggle. Yeah,
and I always think when I'm thinking about the complexity of, or the journey that I went through and that we went through, it was, I felt sort of that I almost was grieving for 20 years. Because there was, the energy, the time, and she would get better. She got better through that journey, that she came home and went back to school and did her RNA. And so then you're buoyed with hope.
Yeah, it's really a whole family engagement, and that's up and down, and that's so common. And even in as all of us have worked with that to some degree, that cycle of, they get out of that addiction and find themselves being able to cope, and then something happens and away they go. And it's just such a roller coaster, and very much filled with grief along the way.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that, she couldn't have had to be having a good time. I mean, she didn't want to do this, obviously. I think too, and back in, my experiences, so it's that up and down hope, and it's during that period of time, that 20 years or whatever it was, you're trying all the time to do the right thing. I don't think I ever knew what the right thing was. And when I try and explain to people, I think sometimes it's like, I heard an analogy one time which was apropos. I felt like I was trying to learn the violin at Carnegie Hall. You're on stage and somebody's saying, yeah, you can do this. I go, no, I can't. I don't know how to play the violin. And so you're in this extremely difficult and sensitive area, and you have no idea what you're doing.
Many of the parents I've spoken with, one of the themes is just how chaotic those periods of time are and those years are, and how unpredictable they can be. And I'm just wondering, was there a sense of chaos, and were they very tumultuous for you and your family?
Yeah, confusion, very much like that. And there are periods of time, Kath and I always bonded. We had as good a relationship as she could at the time. The confusion and the chaos, you tried to, because you're doing this in your spare time, in a sense, because you have 5 other children, you have wife and family and career, and there are a lot of plates in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And also you have an audience if you use that Carnegie Hall analogy, you have an audience and all of them are telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that I think that's part of the chaos and confusion, because I would get texts from her from wherever she was, and then you would text back and say, and she would say, well, I may as well die. And then I'd be in and out of a meeting or walking or whatever I was doing, and you go, okay, what should I text back to her?
Right.
And that's chaos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's crazy making in a sense, right? And so I would text back and then you would wait.
Right. It's anxiety provoking and heart wrenching to hear your daughter say something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can feel helpless then. What are you supposed to do? How do you text back?
Totally helpless. You text back, based on whatever you've learned, or your empathy, your sympathy for her situation and hope. And after a while, I think you kind of felt that I pretended I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't. Because I would text back, honey, people that love you and all that stuff. And then you would wait. And then 2 hours later, you get another text, and I feel better. And so that's, you do that for a while. And that plays with your mind.
And then you breathe again.
Yeah.
Right?
Then you try and breathe again. Yeah.
Bob, how long did you live kind of with that worry sitting right there that one day I might get the phone call that she has died? How long was that there, that you were trying to go to the meetings and do your other parts of your life, but that was there all the time?
Probably when she was about 19 or 20 to 43.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we supported her to go to treatment. Mm-hmm. We had the first time that we encouraged her to go to treatment was she went to Homewood in Nanaimo. Mm-hmm. Wonderful place. But in retrospect, she wasn't ready. We were ready for her to go and get some help. And she went reluctantly. I actually went out. They had a program called the Insight program where they asked the residents to have a significant person come and take a program. And it was a 10-day program, so she voted me. So I went out and did that. It was extremely good, very intensive, because we were in the residence with everybody. But she wasn't ready for it, so she came out and immediately went to downtown Vancouver. But over the period of time, we helped her get to Jean Tweed in Toronto, Homewood in Guelph, Stonehenge in Guelph. So we felt that we were doing whatever we could because we wanted her to be with experts and not, deciding what text to do. So.
And I think it gets lost sometimes with people who have never experienced this, that it must have been hell for Kathleen. Mm-hmm. I mean, as much as it is for you and your family and Susan and the girls, but for the person going through it too, that struggle knowing and that power of addiction. And
awful, just awful. I can think that when people were helping me with grief, they would say, maybe you need to get angry at her.
Yeah.
I never could.
Yeah. Because you understood the suffering.
Yeah.
You understood, or, maybe you didn't understand all aspects of her suffering, because maybe she didn't even understand all aspects of her suffering, but you understood this is a person who is tormented.
Right.
who is suffering. And as David said, yeah, I think that people who don't understand addictions, and I've certainly heard this, like they stand back and go, well, look at what they're doing to their family or themselves, and look at the chaos. And, you know, if they wanted it bad enough, they would do it. And, you know, and when I hear that, I think, oh, those are people that don't understand how much these people are suffering.
Absolutely, 100%. And so, you know, she had talked a number of times, you know, about how lonely she was.
Yeah.
And I always think that that's for anybody, not just people with addictions. I've always thought that that was terrible to go through life being lonely, because I'm privileged, you know, to have friends and family and purpose and all of that. But she would break down, say, I'm lonely and I'm tired of being poor.
And then there's also the shame that happens with addictions, right? Like this deep shame of kind of that, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I, you know, and every time they come through a cycle of, I'm trying to get better, and then they fall back into the addiction, or the addiction takes back over is maybe more accurate language. Then what often, though, from my experience, the thought of the person who is addicted says, like, what is wrong with me that I can't, you know, that I can't conquer this? And that's shame, right? Which then becomes part of the torment and part of the suffering.
Yeah, and the cycle that they must get in. Because, for instance, you know, Kath was arrested and in jail.
Yes.
So how do you work after that? How do you get a person to not only be well, but also then to function? It's really difficult. And the part of it is that you can't actually, I wish I could, take her and go, okay, I'm in charge. I'm going to fix this. But you, after a while, you can't. You because, you know, she's now 20 and 25 and 30, and you asked about the time frame. So, you know, 20 to 43, that's a lot of years waiting for that phone call. Which you finally get. I mean, you know.
And did you get phone calls from her or possibly from law enforcement in the middle of the night as well? Like you'd be woken up on a Tuesday morning at 3 a.m.
Lots of memories like that.
Right.
Lots of them. Getting calls from, you know, Hospital Emerge in Toronto, and a doctor on the phone saying, what would you like me to do with your daughter? We picked her up off the street 3 times in the same night, and, you know, that kind of thing. So no father should have to, you know, deal with that. But that was those are the bad cycles, you know, dropping her off on in the parking lot, and her sitting in the middle of the parking lot, not knowing where she was going to go. Those are vivid. They're vivid memories, and yet the loneliness and the disruption that she would feel, I can't imagine. And I was as close as you can get. I can't imagine that. And I've not experienced it. So as much as we would want to fix it, you don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
It's that jumble of love and concern and anxiety and stress and love and helplessness.
Yeah. And fright.
Yeah.
There's always people who want to tell you that, don't you know, you need to do this, right? And
yeah, I was just thinking about the people who say things like, my clients tell me, like, well, you just need some tough love, or you just need to set more boundaries. And sometimes people do, right? And sometimes people do. But I always think, yeah, but you're not the one that has to go to bed tonight and try to sleep and wonder about where your kid is.
And ultimately, I mean, it's very much like being a leader. I mean, you can ask all kinds of other people. But when you're on that phone,
Yeah.
you're it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're deciding based on the information that's surrounding you, and information and support from, my wife and family, and then you're it, though. You have to do it.
So can you tell us how you changed through that process in terms of how you might respond to those phone calls or these crisis moments? Because I find, and I'm only learning this from my clients, but they often have a trajectory where how they might have dealt with it in the early days and how they had to learn how to live with it and respond to those phone calls, say from the Emerge doctor later on, that changes over time.
That's a really good question. And I think that I did change over the period of time based on, because I did smarten up after a while and went to see a counselor. And I wanted the counselor to give me skills and techniques to use so that I could live as well as dealing with Kath and to help her as best I could. And after, I'm a reader too, so I read lots, and I'm a bit of a writer, not a journal writer, but I write down things that people say during that period of time to me. Still, I still have the books. I have these books that I write in. Just sayings, things that I learned from reading Alan Wilfelt, Melody Beattie. She has written some stuff on grief. It's things that resonate, so I would write them down. So those things helped me, and just to have a book that I could open up and reinforce. So if I was coming to you for counseling, I'd maybe go every couple of weeks, but I needed something every day.
Right. Something to ground you or anchor you.
Exactly.
Because of the chaos and the crisis.
So important.
Yeah.
And I would, go to my favorite ones because I got to the point where I could recognize what I needed at the time. That sounds a little funny, but because the complexity for me was the confusion, the fear, but also at that point in time, I hadn't sort of got to the point where I learned the language of resolution and reconciliation. To me, was a very important concept for me to go forward with, because I'm an analytical person, and so I wanted to find out why. Why in the hell was this happening? Why is she doing this? What did I do wrong? So guilt was a big trigger.
So Bob, can you take us to the day that Kath died and talk a bit about the circumstances and what that was like?
It was the worst. I think that happened December 14th. She died about 1:30 in the morning. I had been texting her back and forth, and I guess she was moving. Her and her partner were moving into a place, and I was supposed to go down and see her. Weather was not great, so we were back and forth thinking about whether I should be on the road or not, and I still have the texts, right? You drive yourself crazy a little bit. It's important. So at 10:30, we had finished texting, and then 3 hours later. So I should digress a little bit, because I think one of the things that disturbed me more was that I wasn't with her. Sorry. So that carried on through my grief.
She was in Kingston?
She was in Kingston, sorry. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so that was a big thing for me, that no matter what she had done or what circumstances, I wanted to, so I felt that was very important. So a phone call came 7:30ish on Saturday morning, because obviously it was a police call and it was a paramedic call. And her partner, Greg, called me in the morning on her phone. So it was, I remember very vividly, and I answered the phone. Oh, hi, Kath. How's your moving going? And it was Greg, and he was told me that she had died early in the morning, and he didn't know what to do. He obviously was an addicted person as well, so nice guy. I had met him a number of times, and he didn't know what to do. And I said, well, look, I put Susan on the phone because I could not deal with it. Although, you had spent a lot of years waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can never be ready for that call.
Not the same.
No.
There's no practice for this.
No. Mm-hmm. No.
And so, yeah, and then a whole series of, obviously the whole series of the practicalities of it. I was the contact person, so contacting, hospital. I had a friend at Highland, as you know, David, and so I phoned Joe, and everybody was so helpful. But like you're just in a spin, like, yeah, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then we, because it was before Christmas, and our family unfortunately had experienced, my nephew died in a car accident December 17th. So we have a very loving and resilient family. So we did as much as we could. We put off the celebration until after Christmas because, we are little kids and, you had to go on. So that's what we did.
Did she die alone? You mentioned that you weren't with her and how that stayed with you. Do you believe that she died alone?
She had been with one or two other people, but they had left, apparently. But I think what happened, although police couldn't tell me, that someone had called and found her. So,
and there's always that, it's a whole cacophony of stuff where the police get involved, and there's all that legal piece of it, and the coroner, and of course everything is kind of held up until all these things get clear. And sometimes, and I'm not sure, and I don't want to make a judgment, but often, it's people are treated differently, coming off the addiction and that overdose drug piece, that sometimes people can take that and not be quite as compassionate and empathetic with things. But and then there are others who are very good that way and get it. But again, it's navigating all of those pieces. And even although, and I'm listening to you, Bob, and it's connecting with that sense of you're waiting for that phone call. And as Julie said, you're never ready for it. And yet the grief, it's kind of like, it's not new grief. It is new grief because she's finally died, but it's just an extension of the grief that was there, just exploding.
Yeah, it definitely is more intense. And although I always thought that it may happen. I remember getting the call with that, the police came to tell us about my nephew who had died, and it was an accident. And so it's tragic because you're not there also. You just you feel very useless, and I should have been there, or whatever. I mean, that's a whole other story. The grief journey through guilt is
the woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Oh my God! But when I look back on that day and those few days, there were some things in retrospect 6 years ago that, because I had communicated with Kath's partner throughout that first day, because he was despondent. He didn't know what to do. And he kept on calling me on Kath's phone. So it was just a little thing.
Jarring.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I finally had to say to him, okay, can you use your own phone, please? Because this is really getting to me.
Yeah.
And so those are things that just sort of pop into your mind. And, now it didn't seem so bad, but because he was doing the best job that he could. But it was just those things. And if I can mention one other thing, you talk about the police and, talking to the coroner on the phone and talking to the police on the phone, because I was the contact. So I'm getting, the calls, and Susan's trying to filter and do, what she can. And then we have a very large family, and so we're calling everybody, and I remember talking to the coroner about his report, and he said, well, I don't, because there's an autopsy and there's all kinds of things that have to go on because it's a police call, and anyway, he said that it'll be a while. And I remember in June 25th was her birthday. And I remember when they went to the mailbox on June 25th, her birthday, and there was the coroner's report. I thought, no, don't give it to me today.
Of all days. Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. You just go, as if I needed another reminder.
I have heard, and I'm just going to check with your experience. Once the sort of the reality sinks in, folks I've spoken to often also have, at the same time of the sorrow and the grief, there's this conflicting feeling of relief as well. And I'm just wondering, was that any part of your experience? Was there any sense of it's over? The chaos is over. Was that part of your experience, or was that something that wasn't part of what you went through? Right.
Not for me. I'm sure for other people. I'm sure that's the case. But for me, no. And that was mentioned to me.
It's a very conflicting feeling for people who experience it, because.
So fortunately, I didn't have that conflict.
Right.
That, oh my goodness, I can go to bed, and no, did not make a difference to me. I would have happily
carried on.
Right. Yep.
What did you do that was helpful as you look back in terms of grief, and what do you recognize is different about the grief journey that you've been on?
I spent a lot of time thinking about, because of the way I am, a lot of times thinking about the process, my process, what I did. I think it took me a while to be okay with myself. I think that's. I think for other people in similar circumstances would be the same. I'm not the same person now. It's not possible. But I think I learned a lot about the way that I reacted and the way that I tried to set some boundaries. I think I tried to understand that I tried to protect her over many years, keep her a little distance from other people who were less than positive. But, I was also very fortunate to have Susan, my partner, and, very supportive, loving family.
Can you speak to how you went through that together? Because that's an incredibly big stress. So as a couple, how did you negotiate these difficult waters?
I don't know if I negotiated, just listen to her, You're absolutely right. It causes tension. And I'm sure that Susan would say that, kind of because of the blended family, she was at least a little bit removed. And I don't mean that in any detrimental way, but not necessarily be the same intensity. And because I was so close to Kath, I think we're still dealing with it. Just like we have a very large family, so there's always something going on. But I think I learned better ways to understand how other people were approaching me, and I think I learned better to get in their shoes too, because you're all very experienced, and you've heard all the different things that people say about when people die, and so in my mind I would want to shake some people.
I bet you would.
And say, "Oh, now she's in a better place." Right. That kind of thing, and you know what? I've become very much more understanding of that people were supportive of us. In all my time, I don't remember one person really ticking me off. It was just, and so I think it brought a little bit. There was more calmness to it, and you're talking about the relationship, and husband and wife, that kind of partnership. There's always some tension back and forth, and Susan's just looking out for my welfare, and one of the things that I thought that I learned also through that period of time was I kind of thought that you get to the point where say, what the hell do you know about it? Somebody give you a piece of advice, or how dare you tell me that whatever, or I should have done this. Listen, I beat myself up more than you'll ever do that, right? And so I think I learned to be more gentle and understanding.
I remember you saying about somebody when it first happened, or maybe it was at the celebration, and somebody said to you, "You got this, Bob." Yeah. and how that just was a reality of...
It was, you had to walk away. You had to walk away.
Well, it's just, it just speaks to our struggle as humans when we can't fix something, when we see people struggling in distress, in pain, and we say things like that. And I probably said things like that, and I hope I wouldn't anymore at this point in my life, but because, not the big stuff in life is typically a problem that can't be fixed. And so we sit in the discomfort and the uncertainty and the struggle of that. And for some people, that's intolerable. So then what comes out of their mouth is, "You've got this, Bob," or "She's in a better place."
Yeah. And now we can, joke about it a little bit. Then not so much.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I can sort of pinpoint certain things during during the grief period, which is forever. And I have to go back to some of the same things again. Some of the things I write about, and I go, oh, how can I forget that? How can I, like, the whole resolution, reconciliation thing is like probably my favorite.
Do you want to speak to that for a moment? Because you've already mentioned that.
Because I had a need to find out what happened. And, instead of focusing on, well, are you going to live? And I was saying to someone a couple of weeks ago that during that first period of time, that first, say, 6 months after, in that 6 or 7 months, my mother-in-law died on Mother's Day that following year, and then my brother-in-law died two months after that. So we were grieving, like, take your pick, all the time. It's like that first few months, I didn't really want to live. I wasn't going to harm myself. I wasn't going to do anything. But I kind of thought, I should just get sick and die. I didn't really, and then of course you get buoyed by other purpose, our other children, our grandchildren, and that sort of, and I remember making a fairly clear decision in that I was going to live, that I wanted to live. And then it's the reconciliation part. It's like, okay, now what? Now, what are you going to do with this? It was like somebody said, it's like carrying around like a weight it's a backpack now. I got to put something else in my backpack, and I've got to find a way to live, a fruitful, helpful, life. But I got to carry this. And then I got to, find some people to help me.
Yeah.
And because I can't do this by myself. Yeah. And people who, I don't know, because I can only speak from my own experience, is that you have to find that purpose and other, I feel sorry for people who don't have the privilege that I do in terms of having, colleagues and friends and family, a loving partner who, I don't know how people, I feel sorry for people who struggle with it, because it's a struggle. For me, it's daily. It's every day.
And we're still there, even though it's 5.5 years later.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece, again, that people don't recognize, that, there is no sense of, oh, I'm over this now. This is that you carry that all the time.
And it affects you. Like, and part of, I think, what I needed to learn, and that I am learning, is, okay, how do you do it? You've been through, some trauma in a sense, and okay, so, this person is saying, I got to write that down, and reinforce and reinforce and reinforce. There's not a day goes by that I don't read something or flip open a book that I struggle with and find that answer for that day.
For that day.
And then you do it the next day.
I'm putting you on the spot, so
that's what she does.
Yeah, I do that. Is there one that stands out for you? Is there like something you've read, or a quote, or a word, or something that has been anchoring? Or
Julie, there's so many.
Yeah.
There, because I never really know tomorrow what I might need.
It's different. Yeah.
But I remember, David and I think I've talked about it, when Kath was going through her difficulties and it was just intensifying, and I picked up a book by Melody Beattie from that Insight program that I went to in Nanaimo, and she has the dates, February the 12th. And the story on February the 12th, was that in order to deal with an addictive person, whether that be son, daughter, is that she described it as there's a valley and people are having to struggle, and the analogy is that we're up on the mountaintop and it's sunny and it's bright, and you're up on the mountaintop looking at your loved one, and you kind of want to go down there and get them, but you can't. But you're also saying to them, come on.
Yeah.
Come on up here.
Yeah.
That meant a lot.
Yeah.
I think that in some ways helped me survive.
Yeah.
Because it made sense to me, and that I couldn't go down there. And I think that part was what was fearful for my family.
I think it's so important to be, and what I'm hearing from you there is that we need to just be open, and those pieces that we need for that day, they can be there if we're open and we're looking at that. Now, I'd like to put you on the spot. I'll take Julie's a lead from Julie here, and we all know this, and I think it's again a reinforceable truth that we keep saying, that there is no getting over this, that this is your life in a way but you carry her differently along the way too. That changes. But I'm wondering if there's your favorite memory of Kath. If you had a memory that you say there's one that just brings me joy, what would that
there are many. She was very dramatic and flamboyant, and so I remember her calling me at work one time. I think actually I was teaching at Confed, and she said, "Well, hey, Dad, when are you going to be home?" And I said, "Well, probably like 5 o'clock or something like that, whatever I said." And she said, "Oh, because I dyed my hair." And I said, "Oh," because she had beautiful blonde hair. And I thought, "Oh, okay." And I came down the street. We lived in a dead-end street, so she was out playing or whatever. And she looked like Raggedy Ann. Red hair and bright.
Right.
And I thought, oh, there's Kath. There's Kath, all right. And her daughter is beautiful and lovely. And, she has many of the characteristics of her mom.
World loves a redhead.
Says Red.
There you go.
Everybody wants red hair.
As we start to bring our conversation to a close, what haven't we covered, or what do you want to mention that feels important?
We've covered a lot, and thank you for listening. I think as David said, the difficulty is that you have to learn that it's never over. And I think also that I really don't want it to be over.
Yeah.
I don't really want it to be I'm well now, and so that was the past. And no, it's let me have my grief.
Yeah, because
Because it's important for me to remember the journey and to think of her.
Mm-hmm.
And
because it's rooted in love.
it is. And, I go down and have chats with her.
Well, and to not would be this, in a way, denying her existence when we don't talk about people that have gone before us, and no matter how they go, right?
Yeah. She didn't want that kind of life. And also I think that one of the things that I learned, maybe not favorably, but I learned along the way, 3/4 of the way through that journey, was that, because Kath always sent me notes, and she was always the one that held me accountable. She'd go, "Dad, you're being stupid," or "You're being an idiot." She was very direct, but very loving. And I keep those memories pretty close.
Yeah.
And the fact that you want to celebrate her and obviously hope for a better outcome from her point of view, but I don't want to ever replace those feelings. I cry easily, but that's a wise man said to me one time that if I could talk about it and cry, that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and seeing as you quoted Alan Wolfelt earlier, maybe that's a good way to leave here, because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, as Wolfelt would say, if you choose to love, then you're choosing to grieve.
Yeah.
And I hear in your grief, the reason it's still there is because love is still very much there. Mm-hmm. And as long as love is there, grief is a companion at this point. Mm-hmm. So, but it is love. And that has come through very strong through this time, Bob, that you loved her very much. You still do. Mm-hmm. And that will never change.
Never change.
And
no.
Thank you for courageously joining us and helping us talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to What Now? On the Threshold of Life, Death, and Grief. What Now is produced in partnership with Hospice Peterborough, dedicated to providing compassionate care and support to individuals and families facing life-limiting illness and loss. What Now is recorded at Thin Spaces Studio in Peterborough, Ontario. Special thanks to Paradise Garage for providing the music. Technical support is provided by Sean Heichert and audio engineering by Kevin Fleming. More episodes of What Now are available for free on most major podcast platforms. If you found value in our conversations, please support us by following, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends and loved ones. If you'd like to support the essential work of Hospice Peterborough, please consider visiting hospicepeterborough.org/donate. Your contribution helps us to continue to provide vital care and support. Until next time, may you find peace and comfort on your journey.